Thanks for being here. You could be anywhere and you chose to be here. This is Lily, and welcome to Affirming Self. This podcast may be a challenging one for us to talk about, and I know that we can do it together. So that's what we're going to do. We all have people in our lives that we deeply love, or at the very least, at some level we have connection with in our lives. These connections that we have in our lives, they're so important because they allow us to experience life. Though each person in our life has and is in a different context, they fulfill a specific role in our lives. It doesn't mean that every single person is for you. Some people are meant to be there for a quick crash course and a lesson you need to learn. Yeah, that kind of hurts, even when I say it now. Is that every person that is in your life or that you meet? Absolutely not. See, there are some people that are meant to be there for a season too. We all have seasons, stages in our lives. In Ecclesiastes, it talks about seasons in our lives. Sometimes we meet people who are meant to walk with us through a particular season where we are in need of their support and or expertise. Sometimes, or rather, most times, you're in their life too for a reason. You have something to offer them as well. But the point is that there's going to be some people that are for a reason, a lesson. They're going to be somebody that is not meant to be there forever. However, here's the cool part. Then we do have those forever people that are going to walk with you through life. And those are the people that you get to hold on to and pay attention to. And think about why it is that they're there. These are your ride or dies. These are the gems that you find unexpectedly. I found these are the people that they are there for you in ways you didn't know you needed. These are the people that speak to your souls. Their voices are like a healing balm on the wounds of your heart and sound like home. These are your safe spaces. They have stood the test of time. These are the people that you may or may not talk to every day. These might be people that you go for days or weeks, months, that you don't talk to them, but the time flies by and then you can pick up exactly right where you left off. That's a gift. These people are unique in your life. They aren't going anywhere. Now, I have a few notes about these types of people, or rather, a hard truth that may be difficult to sit with. And I invite you to consider that even though this may be hard to hear, it's not necessarily a bad thing, as it may be surprisingly freeing. Are you ready for it? Not everyone is meant to be a forever person. I'm going to let that sink in. Not everyone is meant to be a forever person. Though this is hard to be with, this also is a part of freedom. You get to choose who is in your life. That is freedom. The freedom is you get to choose who is in your life. Each person gets to choose who is in their life, and that's beautiful. Some of you may be thinking, well, no, Liliana, that's not true. I don't get to choose who is in my life. And I would respectfully ask, do you have a choice of where you live, where you work, what you do, what you eat, how often? Anyway, you get to choose those sort of things. So why can't you choose this either? I'm reminded of a few instances, and I'm going to go into those in a little bit, but I really feel at this point in time of the podcast that I need to clarify something. There may be some people in your life that you may get to be a part of their life because of a context, such as they're your family, they're your parents, they're a teacher, they're a boss, those sort of things. And there are certain times and spaces in which you may not be able to change that context right now, or what that looks like at this time. However, you do get to choose how you are about how you think about it. It's your mindset. I'm specifically reminded of a few instances in my life where these were hard things. So the first story, I was in middle school and I had two best friends. We did a lot of things together. We did our studying for school. We did cheerleading together, and we did a bunch of things. So in our 7th grade year, we all tried out for the cheer squad, and we made a pact regarding if all of us made it, if one of us made it, or if none of us made it, or whatever it was, we were all going to treat each other the same. And we all agreed. Or at least, and this is key, at least that was my perception. So everything goes through and everything like that, and we all make it. Hooray! It was really fun, right? And at the start, things were fine. We still hung out. We, did all the things together. We spent a lot of time together anyway. So when you just added the extra cheerleading squad thing, it was like, oh, wow, okay. But anyway, the point was there came a time where it was clear to me that they were no longer friends. And in my perception, they abandoned me. They didn't answer my calls, or when they did, it was very short and sweet. They didn't want to hang out. I was getting excluded. I was getting excluded from these things that I thought, oh my goodness, this is like what I thought I was supposed to be doing, And that's a really challenging space to be when you think that you are in the in crowd, or at least you're doing something. Man, anyway. So fast forward throughout the 8th grade year, I was depressed. We ended up not talking for the rest of the year, and despite my efforts to stay connected, it wasn't a mutual thing, and I really struggled with that. And we ended up going our separate ways. And in my perception, how it occurred was not right. I thought they really wronged me. There was no explanation, and I felt hurt and used and abandoned. And I felt this for a long time. And if I remember correctly, there were a lot of tears and a lot of rehashing and a lot of things that just ate at me. And the reality of it is that it did not help anything at all. And I think I was in what I would call grief for like a year or two. But what was cool later on after everything, and I wasn't planning on going to this part of the story, but we'll just go there, I guess. And that's one of the girls reached out to me. And this was like in the mid 2000s. So it's like what, 2007 or something like that? Or maybe it was 2008. It doesn't really matter. The point of it is that one of my friends had reached out and like invited me to join Facebook. Ooh, Facebook. And I remember talking to my dad. He's like, sure, yeah. And then I reached out. No, I didn't. Well, did I reach out? No. I had like posted some pictures. She commented and I sent her a message thanking her or something. And then she wrote back this really beautiful apology. And the thing at the end of the day was it meant a lot to me because she acknowledged like, oh, hey, this wasn't cool of me. And there were some things that she said that just really touched me. I wish I still had it and I don't. But it's okay because... Should I just say, but man, I usually like to say and. And it's okay that I don't have it because I got the gist and it's in my heart today. But that was a really cool thing to experience because during those times when I really struggled, when all that stuff was happening, what I was doing is because I was choosing to hold them responsible for how I was feeling about things. That is what was stopping me from really moving forward. Well, what I learned from that was I chose to treat them exactly the same, regardless of how they were treating me. And when I chose to treat them the same regardless, it was painful and it was something that I needed to do for myself to be able to move forward with whatever it is that I was called to, or however you want to say it. But it was a blessing. Now I'm trying to remember the second story. But you know what? It's a good thing I started writing notes down and it was like a game changer, you know? So one happened in middle school. We talked about that one. Oh, the one about 5 years ago. So the one about 5 years ago was a really interesting story. So there was this person I was seeing, getting to know. Looking back, it was really early stages, and I had a very different mindset when it came to the whole dating thing. And so this person and I, we had gone to Israel. We were doing I guess you could say it was kind of like a missions trip. Anyway, we went there with a team of people, or met up with a team of people and did that trip. And our whole thing was like, oh, we're going to look at to see if we're supposed to get married and everything. And we did that, and we discovered that it was a resounding no. However, with where I was at that time, I was so willing to make so many concessions, to give up so many of my non-negotiables. And I want to be clear. I'm not trying to say like there was 112 things that were wrong with this guy, because there wasn't. He was in a different place and I was in a different place. And there were things that we both got to discover and we get to heal from and all of that. So I want to be very clear. I'm not saying anything negative about this guy, because I own the fact that in that time and space, there were a lot of things I needed to heal from and I was not ready for that kind of relationship. I want to be very clear about that. But here's the lesson. The lesson is this, is that when I walked through that, I remember while I walked through that, I was willing to make concessions. And because I wanted to be married so badly, it was like, nope, I'm just going to, go for it, whatever. And my dad and I had a really powerful conversation. I remember it was very late at night for me in Israel. And when I say late, it really wasn't. It was maybe like 9:30, and I was standing in a vineyard and I'm on the phone with my dad. So I think it was probably like in the afternoon somewhere for him, because it was like 10-hour difference or something, because Pacific Standard Time. Anyway, getting off topic. The point I'm trying to make is that my dad shared some really good wisdom with me. And there were some things that he didn't see when he was getting married to my mom. And he said, hey, if I would have known this, things would be different. That's a paraphrase. I remember having the conversation with my dad. If you're noticing red flags, you need to make sure that you go the other way. And I remember saying to him, oh, Dad, this is a red banner. This is a banner. And he was like, go the other way. And it was really good that he said that to me. Was I absolutely ready to receive it at the time? I really struggled with it. And my dad's a really wise man, so I have a tendency to listen to him. For the most part, like, I'm a human being and I make my own choices. But when you're parent who loves you deeply and they give you advice, do your best to be there and to take it and to ask the why, seek understanding. And that's kind of a side tangent, but here's the lesson learned is what I'm trying to say. So when we got back from Israel, this guy and I, and it was very clear that we were not a thing anymore. And we ended up going out to lunch. And once that no was no, at this point in time, I wasn't necessarily trying to get this person back or anything like that. But I really was just trying to let go. And when I allowed myself to feel the feelings, and I did, I just was decimated because, we made plans. We had all this stuff that we wanted to do. And looking back, not that this is a bad thing because it's all learning, right? There wasn't really the ability to make it happen entirely. Again, there's nothing wrong with this human being, but there just wasn't ambition or drive. At the time they weren't working, they had ability to support themselves, but it just wasn't something that as a woman you would want in a marriage. It's a partnership, and that's a whole nother bag of whatever. But the point of what I'm trying to say is that what made it hard was this person still wanted to be in my life. And I didn't have the ability at the time, or I didn't see that I had the ability or the strength to tell them that I didn't want them to be in my life. And when I say it like that, this is just me kind of talking off the cuff and sharing this with you, because the reality of it is that I didn't even know that I didn't want it. I was trying to force something to happen, just kind of like I was doing in middle school. And eventually, I got brave. And when I remember when I was getting ready to move to go to across the U.S., a friend of mine, love her dearly, such a beautiful friend, she just said, "No, Liliana, you just need to block them." Because this person would just call and kind of stick around, and it was just like I couldn't get over this person. And though it's different from the middle school thing in the sense of, even though it's different from the middle school thing to an extent because it was a dude and not a female, there was a similar dynamic in a way with just how things played out. There's something I want to highlight about this that's really cool and interesting. So with this gentleman, a couple years passed, and I realized I was holding on to all this anger and all this frustration and different stuff that was not healthy or good for me. And what I ended up doing was I tried to find him on Facebook or tried calling him or something, but I did get a hold of him. Anyway, I ended up reaching out to him, and we essentially made amends. And what was really interesting is that, we kind of started talking a little bit again. And you might be thinking, well, Liliana, why would you do that? He hurt you so bad, blah, blah, blah. The point is I needed to do it for myself. I needed to let go. Because when I chose to let go and to forgive him, really forgive him, that was something that really made the difference. And so when I did that, he and I talked a few times, and then later he ended up coming to me and saying he wasn't able to connect with me anymore. It was just too much for him. And, he basically owned up for something that he needed to. And it was really cool to see him own up to it, as it was something that, I already knew. And I'm sure you all have people in your life where you're like, well, I wish so-and-so would, own up for this or whatever. However, I noticed that it was because I chose to own up first and release him, and he was able to release himself, if that makes any sense. You may be wondering, well, where's the lesson here? And I'm going to get to that once I share this last story. So this last story happened about a month ago. And this friend of mine and I've been friends for a handful of years, really beautiful human being, love them so much. And we were naturally kind of falling away from each other, not because we didn't like each other or anything like that, but it was just a natural progression. And from my perception, I can't speak for her entirely, But from my perception, I think we both knew, like, yeah, at this point in time, we just get to walk away. Nothing wrong with that. And so we just naturally stopped talking as often. I mean, I actually didn't really remember how much we had been communicating up in the last 2 months of our friendship or period of time where we were connecting often, however you want to phrase it. And I get this voice message from this person. And to make a long story short, the gist was basically they were choosing to walk away. And I realized that when I was listening to the message and they shared their reasoning why, and they said some very sweet things towards me, and that was wonderful for them. And I say for them because I could clearly see it had nothing to do with me at all. They're a wonderful human being, and they felt the need to say it for themselves, so they knew that they would be, I guess you could say, have a free conscience. I'm not saying this to be unkind. What I'm saying is that there was no need for them to say all of this. They could have just stopped talking to me. They chose to tell me that they were going to block me after the message was sent. So I couldn't even say to them if I wanted to. Best wishes, all that stuff. And honestly, it was like, okay. See you later. And honestly, it was just like, okay, we get to let go. And the thing that was more frustrating for me was that they felt the need to say all the stuff that they needed to say for themselves. And really, it was clear they did not have any regard for myself at all. Just how things were phrased. And what I felt and sensed the heart behind it was. Now, I'm not God. I can't say that I really know like what was in their heart, her heart. And what I know is how I responded to it was I was like, okay, moving on. Because the reality of it is, as I said before, and this is kind of the lesson between all three of these stories that I shared, is that you get to choose who is in your life. And the people in your life get to choose if you are in theirs. And that may be hard to experience. What I experienced through those particular spaces, though some of them were very similar and different all at the same time, there's still a common thread. It comes down to choice. And what I learned about the middle school girls is that they were definitely supposed to be what I needed for a time to feel like accepted and connected to a group. We had many good memories together, and I'm so grateful for all of them. And I'm so glad that we had those memories. And there was hard things, getting to choose that it's time to let go and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with letting go. With the gentleman, what I learned is that don't compromise. Don't compromise yourself for another human being to be who they want you to be. And this particular person had things to say regards to they didn't feel deserving of me or things like that or whatever. And that's with him. That's not with me. That was another thing I got to learn from that. And with this recent thing is that sometimes people don't I feel like I'm trying to say people don't not love you, but I don't feel like that makes sense. What I'm saying is that people can love you and they can choose to not walk with you, whether it's for a time or for a longer period of time. The significance and the importance is that you get to know that you get to choose how it affects you. And I know for me and how I've looked at these things over the years is that my response and how I choose to think about it is everything. Each of these groups of people are beautiful people. They're fearfully and wonderfully made. They are worthy of exploring and discovering and becoming who they are supposed to be. Just like you, just like myself, and everyone around us. I'm sure there have been at least one person that you've been thinking about as I've been sharing this through this podcast about what they chose to do or whether or not you should keep them in your life, that sort of thing. And one of the things that we'll talk about at another podcast, and I believe I've said this before, it might have been the second one, and if I didn't, I'm saying it now, is that, choosing your tribe, find your tribe. And if that's something that doesn't jive with you, you can say finding your group, finding your chosen family, however it is for you. One of the things that you need to look at, or you get to look at, is that is it that not just that you bring to them, what do they bring to you? How do they make you feel? Do they encourage you? Do they support you? Do they lovingly call you out when you are wrong? And what I mean by wrong is not necessarily like you're washing the dishes incorrectly or you're not doing something like that, but when you're not talking to yourself the way that you deserve to be talked to. And I'm talking about those things where like you're looking at a math problem and you're like, I can't do math. And they're like, you can do math, like you can train your brain in math. Or you're saying like, I can't get this scene right, like if you're an actor. But you have that friend that's like, no, like you actually did the scene pretty well. And I just offer that or invite you to look at this differently, Or, maybe you're banging yourself up in the head, metaphorically, not actually, people. But you're stuck in a way of thinking because you think that you're not good enough at something or whatever. You're going to have those people that are going to help you. They're going to encourage you. They may be even the people that choose to just sit with you in silence because that's what you need. And we'll talk about the whole finding your chosen family, your tribe, however you want to say it, later. The point is that think about, is this relationship with this person, does it serve you? And I don't mean like, are you getting all these things, but is it life-giving to you? Are you being blessed by that person and are you blessing them? Is it an equitable relationship? And I'm not saying, like go down the list and, throw out all these horrible people or all these people at once. No. Obviously, it's going to take time to think about. But that's what I invite you to do for this next bit, is that you really look at who you are and the good things about yourself and how you're trying to develop yourself, and see if these people are actually contributing to you. Because the first place that you get to learn and grow in these spaces is, your worth and understanding that you are worth having people alongside you in things. However, there are going to be some people, like I already said, with the girls in middle school, they were meant to be for a time. They were there for a reason. They taught me that essentially that you can have a beautiful friendship with people for a time and it doesn't have to be forever. And that you can learn and gain skills from that. With the young man, I learned not to compromise. Now, that is something that I've continued to learn in more depth over time. But again, he was for a reason, for a lesson. He wasn't necessarily meant to be there forever. And even though we did come back together and we ended up reconciling, I haven't talked to him in at least a couple years. I'm sure he's doing well. I hope he is. I don't know. And then with the recent thing, that person chose to not allow me to say anything to them, and that's okay. They chose whether or not I get to be in their life. And I get to be with the fact that we are not in each other's lives. And there's nothing wrong with that, because we get to move forward in our respective areas in which we are called to. And I would never want to get in the way of somebody's growth. And my hope is that we all feel that way about all the people that we come into contact with. Because when we start getting selfish and we are thinking about what we want in a sense of like, but this is how I want this to be and this is how it should be. No, it doesn't have to always be that way. Not everything is going to look the way that you want it to look. And you get to be with that, and how you are about it is what defines and what it makes it look like. So, thanks for being here. You could be anywhere and you chose to be here. This is Affirming Self, the podcast, and I look forward to having people on here soon. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this podcast if you enjoyed it. And I look forward to being with you next time. Have a good one wherever you are, whether it's good morning, good evening, good night, whatever. Have a beautiful one. And thanks again for being here.